much for agreeing to work with myself again on this presentation where, as mentioned, Referral Starter BDM Academy are looking at offering, I should say, a quarterly webinar that we can give complimentary back to the industry of things that we can share that I guess a thing that we're both passionate about with rent roll growth. We tend to focus on key specialised areas in that ourselves as well, and trying to just make sure that as an industry as a whole that we're doing everything we possibly can to get the best opportunities out of what we do, the people that we connect with, and the results that we achieve. And when we were putting together this idea, we were talking about how the approach could be as to covering incentives and covering just cash flow as a whole when it comes to the property management department and the results that you can achieve. So I'm hoping that this presentation certainly helps give you a bit of visual of that as well, and the opportunity, I guess, to be able to see the role of BDM for those that are in larger organisations as a career path versus just a day-to-day job. That's probably, you know, my main focus of my presentation there today. We're going to be covering the 6 secrets to your rent roll growth through incentives and referrals. I'm going to be focusing on the incentive side. I want to also make this very clear as part of my presentation. I briefly mentioned for those who have been very prompt in being on time online earlier today that incentives is not an easy conversation to have, and I do ask that if you feel you're in a situation where you're wanting to have an incentive conversation with your business owner, please do feel free to connect with me and I'm happy to talk through that. The last thing I want to have happen from this presentation today is people leaving and saying, I'm worth this and I'm worth that, and Tara said all these things and Ellen said these things. And, you know, we're genuinely doing this to share what we have seen in the industry and marketplace. So please don't hold us with guns to our heads. We're only really trying to help. And as I mentioned, if you're an employee who's online today and you're watching this to get a better understanding of where you are positioned results-wise and the incentives that you're achieving, then I'm more than happy, complimentary after today's session, and I would suggest that Ellen's probably in the same position as well, that we will have that conversation with you because we prefer for it to be one that ends with a positive outcome rather than one that is a negative one, that's for sure. So moving right along, how to drive the incentives in your team for profitability as well. So you need to really, right from the very beginning, get the team's weigh in. They need to be 100% on board with the vision and the goals that you're wanting to achieve across the property management business. So it's not just about having separate private meetings with the principal, maybe a department leader and BDM. You need to involve your property managers as well. You need to involve your reception as well if you have a separate receptionist, director of first impressions, because they are ones that are also high communicators with the property management business and with those clients that you interact with as well. You also need to create a list of areas where you can increase the income in the property management department. And this is something that I found really fascinating, especially with my coaching visits and client visits that I do throughout the year, is that there are areas that we all think that we're doing, that we think that we have implemented efficiently and that we should be getting all this income from, but sometimes it has been missed. And even in some offices that I've gone to where they think that they've been charging lease renewal fees and they haven't actually been charging lease renewal fees for clients for the last 5 years because it hasn't had an automated setup there and it's not been someone's delegated job to do. So look at increasing fees and income in your PM department. Actually check every file first and make sure that all the fees that are listed in that management agreement and authority are actually within the trust program and that you are charging those fees as well. That can be an absolute goldmine in the very beginning to focus on. Obviously, moving forward from that, once you know that each client file is set up efficiently and correct as well, then you can look at the option as your business continues to progress into actually having a fee increase, which probably for many of you online at the moment sounds a little bit scary, but it is very common for property management businesses to also increase their fees. So don't be afraid by that idea and opportunity. It's definitely something that you can do, but I would suggest, again, talk with the team about it, have an open conversation, and work out where you're up to now as a business and where you actually want to be across the next year. And this is why I love that the quarter for us has actually fallen on December, because a lot of these things that we're talking about, you know, you can start actually the process of the conversation now in December, and then from January really focus on that implementation for 2018 as well. So if you want to be an agency that decides we're actually going to increase by 0.5% across the portfolio or a full percent, or if you've got some clients that are on really low fees for some reason, maybe you purchase that through an acquisition and you're wanting to increase those fees, look at what you're doing as a business and what extra services that you could add. So when it comes to the stage of increasing the fee, you can demonstrate the changes that you've made as an agency and an organisation, which is what has supported that increase to be expected. Many of us, we accept when our interest rate increases, and we accept the bill that the solicitor provides us and the doctor provides us, and we just accept that that's the way of life. And we can educate and train our clients to also do the same as well. I'm expecting there's always going to be a conversation negotiation there, but I also encourage you to have the opportunity to have that conversation as well and continue to increase our profits on the upwards as well. Reward based on increased profits too. So while obviously our core focus in most of the presentation today is around BDM, you can actually drive your property managers to continue to increase the value of their portfolio. And that can be around, as I mentioned, obviously increasing on the actual fee as such and making sure that all the extra charges are being included and being charged when they need to be. But it could also be as simple as actually encouraging them to actually get a 0 arrears rate. It's achievable. There are businesses out there that have no tenants that are in arrears, that they do actually have a 0 arrears rate. So if you're consistently getting your rent coming in, that's going to keep increasing your profits. If you're not getting the rent coming in and they're consistently behind, that actually has an impact on your profits across your whole portfolio as well. Making sure that with your lease renewals that you are encouraging rent increases as well. Again, that's going to continue to increase your profits. I know that we have quite a few followers online today that are based in our WA marketplace and also the NT area, and I'm sure outside of that there are also many that have probably been in a similar situation where you have had massive price reductions across your rents in the last couple of years, and that would have had a heavy impact on the return that the business would be making out of those rents as well. Properties that have gone from $450 a week down to $350, you know, and even sometimes $300, which is a massive, massive drop, and the commissions that you were achieving. And then you've got to top that off with having a landlord that's saying, I've lost all this money, now we need to look at reducing the commission. So then you're getting another hit again because they're trying to reduce their commission again. So if you're starting to see an upward trend, and I know that there's a slight turnaround happening in both those states, but I wouldn't suggest it's way on the up again, then continue to make sure that every time you do a review, that if there is any possible opportunity, even if it's just a $5 rent increase, that you put that forward and make sure that's in place as well. Set your rent roll net growth goals and celebrate the team milestones. This is so valuable and so important on a team productivity-wise and profitability as well. As I mentioned, have your meetings with everybody within the team across property management and then get their way in. So ask them how they would like to actually celebrate. Now, for us as an agency, we had a mixture of feedback. We actually, at one stage, we had a really nice dinner on Fraser Island, seafood buffet, went across on the boat for the evening and came back, which was fantastic. And then after that, the feedback was to go to a paintball gaming area and play paintball against each other, which I was a bit concerned because there was always the joke of, you know, I was bringing in quite a lot of properties and the property managers were going to get me and attack me, and it's not nice, and it's not a, you know, paintball is quite a painful experience. It wasn't as bad as what I anticipated it to be, I will say, but it was such an enjoyable experience to do with the team. It was an activity that was quite active as well, and while it wasn't my specific choice of what I would have loved to do, I'm probably thinking, look at your face, Ellen, probably thinking I wouldn't want to do paintball either, but we did it, and it went really well. Another activity that we did was there was a conference on the Gold Coast that many of you have probably gone to, the PPM conference. So again, once we hit our next milestone, I believe that was the 500 or the 600 mark. I'd have to go back and double check that, but it was definitely one of those. Our business owner, amazing woman, very generous, paid for us all to go to the conference, as well as accommodation for 2 nights as well, and dinner at Dracula's. So because we hit that 100 milestone. And it's just awesome when you know that you've got that support from your business owner as well. So if you are an employee that's online today and you think, you know, I'd really like to get the team excited about the growth, collect some of these ideas together and encourage that team meeting for that conversation and put forward to say, you know, you'd like to help assist in doing this, let's talk about how we can do it as a team, and actually find out from each individual in your team what excites them most about what they do and how they like to be rewarded. Because as you know, not many people are money driven, and so it's important to make sure that we find out what is most important to them and the best result that they can get in their situation of what they do with the office and what's going to excite them to be able to achieve that as well. We need to also make sure that we are going to review each week, each month, each quarter, and annually. So it sounds like a lot of reviewing, doesn't it? But it doesn't mean that when you do what you do in your weekly review is going to take the same amount of time as what you do in your annual review. I'd expect your annual review would be a couple of hours, and quarterly you could probably budget anywhere from around 1 hour, maybe up to 2 hours tops. But by doing the weekly ones, that's going to reduce the time that you have in those bigger sessions throughout the year as well. So weekly is a fast check-in. It might be going through your top 10 KPIs, and that could be across your hot prospects that are coming into the business, the calls that you're making, the results that you're getting from those calls and the types of conversations, the appraisals you're getting, the conversions that you've achieved, and the new business that you've achieved maybe from the call connections as such, the new business that you've achieved from your social media, the new business that you've achieved from your current clients and ongoing referrals that you're getting, your referral partners, which Ellen's got a great segment coming up with that later on. All of that stuff needs to be reviewed, but individually as well, because I find whether you're a full-time BDM focused on rent roll growth or a business that's still just self-generating on its own, sometimes we tend to continue to invest our time and money in areas that might be getting us 1 or 2 leads, and then we put a little bit of time into a new area and we're getting a huge amount of leads, but we don't invest enough time in it where we could actually get more, and it could be less work. So it is really important to review the whole lot, review your marketing, review each individual, and actually have that quality conversation with them. Remember, they are focused within your business pretty much 365 days of the year. I don't think I know of a property manager that goes home and completely disconnects. A lot of them, the mind still keeps ticking with everything they're doing. So they are very passionate about their role and what they do within your business. So give them that quality of time, give them that opportunity to have those conversations with you and be open and share how they're feeling and the results that they would like to achieve personally. The last one, again, as I said, I'm going out on a limb. I'm going all out today and just being super forward, and I'm hoping that really drives everybody who's watching and listening today to be the best they can in their roles and to get the best results in 2018 is to lead your team, and you have to lead by example. So if you're a director of a business who's online here today, every single action that you make within your company, how you do things, if you're someone that arrives late all the time, if you're someone that can get frustrated quite easily and you demonstrate that anger within the business, that has a massive roll-on effect with your team. So you have to lead by example. The days that you're not having the best days, you've just got to suck it up, I guess. It's probably the easiest way to say it. And people will still respect you for being human, but at the same time, if you tend to bring a lot of that negative energy into the office consistently, it will bring down your team, and then they will have a negative approach to what they do, and that then obviously continues on to your clients as well. So your energy will completely drive the team. So whether you be the director of the business, BDMs that are online today, and department leaders, you are all leaders to our amazing property management team that are really the nuts and bolts that just keep everything grinding through for us to make sure that portfolio is nice and healthy and the clients are really happy. If you are positive, if you are happy, if you are showing them how much you love what you do and you demonstrate that vision, I can guarantee you it will encourage the team to follow through and do the same. If you continue to focus on negative energy, it will in turn bring on negative results, which is the last thing that you want to do. So this next slide is talking about the motivation slide, and then we're going on to the serious incentive conversation. So don't worry, I haven't forgotten about it, everyone. It is in the final slide that I've got here today. So how to keep your BDM motivated for growth. When I sent this through to Ellen, and I'm so glad you found that cheeky little smiley face, because it is true. You just need to poke them and just continue to be at them all the time. A BDM is someone that their personality type will be sales driven, and they should be okay with sometimes a bit too much micromanaging, I guess, if that makes sense. A BDM that is very successful tends to be quite cheeky, quite charismatic, and sometimes needs to be reined in. There's someone that's very energetic, loves to get positive results, can't deal with hearing no, and is always pushing to be the best they can be. So every so often we need to rein them in, but sometimes we have days that they just don't go to plan. And I can probably say that throughout the whole of 2017, I have had ups and downs, like the roller coaster, like many of us. But from November, the first 2.5 weeks of November were probably the most stressful times of my career this year, and there were just different things that just kept happening, and it was a roll-on effect every single day, you know. And I'm just so grateful that I have people in my life that just continue to poke me. And I hope that that is a message that you can take back into your office, that whether you be the BDM or if you are someone online today that maybe is the property manager, if people are, you know, we do have things that go wrong and that can consistently be negative, but we've got to start the next day from scratch. Then give them a good poke and help them get back on track again, because you can have such a positive impact on the people that you surround yourself with. And I think that if we see someone who is struggling, if we can get their attention to help them to do so, absolutely. However, if you're on the other end of the scale with your BDM and you're finding that you have to keep pushing them and pushing them all the time, that's different to poking. Poking is just like a little gentle nudge and they're off and on their way again. But if you have that BDM that you have to keep pushing and physically moving along to get to the results that you need and to be doing the activities that they need to be doing, then you've got a question as to whether or not they are actually suited to that role. And that's certainly a conversation I'm happy to have with any of you after this webinar presentation. And I know that coming into 5 years in February of being the director of the BDM Academy, I've had to have those conversations with some business owners before where I've said I just don't know if they're quite suited to the role. From what I'm getting, I'm a bit concerned that they may not be. And it's not a nice conversation to have, but you're putting quite a big investment into this individual. So I feel it's in my best interest to make sure that you do know. Be open to listening to new ideas. I love, love, love when people come forward with ideas, and sometimes there's things that they will bring to you that are fantastic and you will implement straight away, and other times you will go, oh my God, what planet are they on? What on earth are they thinking? But you know what? I would take the person hands down every time that brings all the ideas to me, rather than having someone that is going to be standoffish and closed off and does not engage with the business at all. So if you do find that sometimes there are a few ideas that you get from them that aren't the greatest, but you know that they're really trying, just congratulate them and say, look, I love the direction you're heading in. However, I think that we're going to be doing this at this stage. I will keep it, I'll keep that on top of mind, but I think this is going to be a better approach for the business moving forward. Let me just sit on it, and I'll continue to talk with you about it. So you're not saying no to it. You've just got to make sure that you can demonstrate how it's working in other areas for them as well. I used to come forward with so many different ideas and crazy things where I'd say, we need to, have this big house on a billboard, Jade, and what I'll do is I will have it designed that way, and then I'll have this photo of me that I'm standing on top of the house, and I would come up with this really big idea to say that we are the leaders in the area on the Fraser Coast with prestige properties. And Jay said, look, that's all wonderful, but what do you anticipate you're going to achieve in new business from that, and what's the cost involved? And it's going to cost a few $1,000s. So, the investment wasn't the concern dollar-wise, it was the actual genuine results that we're going to achieve. And we were already achieving so much from referral partners. So while at the first I thought, oh gosh, that's the best idea, I have no idea why she doesn't like it, it makes complete sense now why she slowly squashed the idea, because it wasn't the best idea. It sounded great at the time, but it needed a lot more thought process to it as well. Spontaneous recognition, I think, is fantastic. Surprising people, to give them gratitude and to say thank you is so valuable and so important, and it takes nearly zero time. It's as small as just going up and tapping someone on the back saying, you're doing an amazing job today, I'm really proud to have you on my team. That's all it takes. It doesn't need to be gifts, it doesn't need to be huge dollars of anything, it just needs to be that recognition. So this is probably a really good message for people that maybe principals that are sales-based, but they're not necessarily in the property management business all the time, that the moment that you are, sneak in and say hello and recognize the team, because they're watching you. They're seeing you leave the office. They're watching you high five the sales team. They're hearing the laughter, the banter, the excitement. They want to be a part of that. So I'm not saying that we have to have both departments in the same area. Most of the time we try and still have separate areas, which is fine at this stage, but just go in there, and that same energy that you push with your salespeople, do the same thing with your entire property management business as well, and certainly with your BDM. I'm finding it is more common to have the BDM in the sales department as well, but if by chance they're not, and they're in the property management department, then certainly get involved and go on that side, and don't let them feel alone. I always recommend to my clients that whenever you have an amazing result, tell me. Message me, text me, email me, call me, whatever it is. I want to know about it. I'd love to hear about it. And I also really genuinely want to know when things aren't working. If you are sitting there at your desk and you just either can't pick up the phone because you don't feel comfortable and you're worried about how that conversation's going to go, talk to me. Let me help you get that phone picked up and actually have the conversation. Don't let the fear overwhelm you and overtake the opportunities that you can create within this role. So don't ever feel alone, because you're not alone. And if it's not Ellen and I, there are so many people on social media that are always keen for a chat, in lots of different communities where you can have those conversations as well. But for those of you that are leaders that have a full-time BDM, never let them feel alone, and always make sure that you do check in on them, ask them how their KPIs are going, and I can guarantee you will get the best possible results out of them for your business. Now, the gold mine of conversation being around it was like, oh, everyone's dollars, 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 money, money, money. It's all money conversation today. So providing incentives based on performance is such a big area for business development managers, and I think it's very rare now to find someone who's a full-time performing BDM that's on a base wage and that's it, or on a high salary. It's very common now that they have this set wage and incentives aside of that. It's also becoming more common to have a BDM that is actually operating as a full-time salesperson, so they are on a complete commission-based role. They're not actually getting a base salary as well. So there's quite a few different structures out there. I know that many companies offer a company car in some cases as well. So as a business owner, that's a consideration you have to have. That's an expense from the business that you've got to look at on top of the salary and that you are providing. I really do encourage for those that are online today to remember that when you are a full-time active BDM, that is your complete entire job. And if you're not getting the numbers that are needed, then that's why the question is there as to whether or not you should be staying in the role. And if you're a BDM that is signing anywhere from 3 to 5 managements a month, while in the early stages that can be a very good thing, long term it's not actually gaining the profits that the business owner needs to be able to retain you within the business. The numbers need to be higher, especially if you're on a salary that is anything over $50,000 a year. They're not going to be getting that return that they need for the work that you're doing, plus the expense they have there for you. So obviously that's where Ellen and we really try to help to make sure that we can, wherever your benchmark is set, to increase those numbers. And I feel reasonably confident today that a majority of businesses that are online would probably have 5 walking in the door without having a full-time BDM, and that can be through the marketing they already do within their business, maybe some as low as 3. But if you've established business and you've been in the area and you've already been doing marketing, then there's a high chance that anywhere from 3 to 5 you'll have comfortably walking in. So you can take a lot of different approaches. You've got the option where for those that are getting their base salary, and if that's the case, I tend to suggest to look at the wage line update of what the property manager's lowest base salary is. Try and have your BDM on the lowest base possible, and then have really exciting incentives to drive them. So you can have where they can have a fixed fee. So I have some BDMs that might get $100 per property, some right through to up to $300 per property. Experience is everything, so don't expect if you're a first-time BDM coming into the industry that you're going to be getting high end of what the incentives are, there is a chance that you will be starting down the lower end. And then if they're a business that does the regular reviews, that's where you've got that opportunity to be able to review your incentive package and actually have that conversation. So you've got your flat fee option there, and I found that many of them have varied around that, where you've got your 100 through to your 300, 350 per property. Also keeping in mind that you might decide there may not be payment for the first 5, that's a base of what you have to sign first before you actually get your incentives to cover your salary, to cover maybe your car, your phone, however that's set up, and then the incentive starts from there. And what could also happen is it might be $100, say, per property for anything that the office has generated. So if the office has invested in that lead, it might have come from sales, it might be through a Facebook campaign that they have been doing. You've still signed the business, so, you know, be rewarded, of course, for your effort, but at the same time, there's an expense that the business has had to get that lead through to you. And then something that you generate yourself, that might be $200 or $250, because you may have decided to go out and join a BNI chapter, and you've paid that investment, which is roughly around $1,500 to $1,700 a year, and then you pay for your breakfast on top of that. And you've chosen to invest that yourself, so then you would achieve that higher end. So it is very important, I think, to have that separation where you have what is going to be office generated and what is going to be BDM generated. But if not, you can also take another approach, which I have found has worked, probably more so for people that are fairly new to BDM, because it can be scary. They can have everything there, the right skill set, but it sometimes takes a bit of time to get that momentum, or you can't necessarily get it first month, second month. It can take 3 months to 6 months before you can start to see some positivity coming in. I've seen where businesses have had the base salary, and then what they've done is for the first 5, they will pay 25% of the let fee, and then from the 6th through to, say, up to the first 10, then they'll offer 50% of the let fee, and then it goes through the 15, 75%, and then up to 20 managements, then it goes up to 100%. A lot of businesses will do that based on when it's income producing as well, so it's not just you've signed the contract, it actually has to be producing an income. So do make sure that you've got it properly set up, that you keep a list of those that are hot contacts, and then once they're signed, and once you've actually achieved the income for them. So if you're taking over management from the agency, that can easily take a minimum of 30 days. So you may sign it in December, but you may not actually achieve the incentive until January. And this is where the power of having a strong prospecting pipeline can make a big difference, because you can then see, okay, yes, the paperwork's signed, but I know I'm taking that property over in January. So that's one property I already know that I'm going to be producing an income on. So you might, say, sign 10 properties in the month of December, but only 5 of them actually in December actually produce an income. The other 5 move to January, and say one of them was one that you took from an agent, and then the other 2 were vacant, but you were able to then finally lease them in January. Then those 3 will be paid, but the other 2 are still vacant, so they move into February then. So that's how that works. And that's another good way too, because at least in those first 5, you're getting a much smaller amount, getting 25%, but you're getting something. So you can feel the momentum, you're still getting a bit of reward there for your efforts as well. The other way to look at it, which I had mentioned, is very common for a lot of sales operating BDMs. They've probably been active very much so, I would suggest, maybe 3 years onwards. So they've been in your business for quite a few years, and they're quite comfortable with the role, or they're coming into your business with that very strong experience, and you can tell that they would be quite good in doing that way, is giving them a percentage of the first year's income. Now, it's really important to make sure that you calculate that percentage out, obviously, because some areas are going to have higher rents than others. So I'd probably suggest at the moment, a lot of the rough average stats I'm hearing is up to 10% of the first year's income for anything that's office generated, and then the generosity varies, where some are offering then 15%, 20 and 25% for something they self-generate themselves. So some are doing that more generous, which they're finding is working quite well, because the BDM is then actually choosing to invest in a lot more themselves, and invest in paying for their social media ads, invest in paying to go to networking events and taking those clients out for lunches and different things. So a few things that need to be considered there. there's obviously a clawback process as well if the property doesn't stay with the business for 12 months. So it's an interesting one. I know with the office that I worked for, it was the final incentive package that I was on, so it's one that's I was in amongst as an active BDM, and I didn't come across a problem with that area as such. But there are times in some areas where mismanagement can happen with the property manager, and we had it as a clause basically that there was a third party that would help make that decision as to whether or not I had to hand the part of the referral feedback, because I can't control what the property managers do in the way of performance, if you get where I'm coming from. So you've really got to try and come up with a deciding factor as to how that's going to look. It's not going to be great for that BDM if consistently one individual keeps having mismanagement, but at the same time, if you're well involved in it, then you're not going to see too many. And as the BDM that was signing out that business, if I knew someone was going to only be with us for 6 months, then I'd only claim for 6 months. You know, don't think that you can just go and claim for 12 months if you know they're genuinely not going to be there for that length of time, because that's going to cost the business money. So they do need to have at least been obviously with the business over that 12-month period as well. Make sure that you do have a review process, a part of these ways of how you manage the incentives as well, and continue to raise any concerns. Don't just hope that things will change and things will become better. If you're not feeling comfortable within your incentive package and there are questions that you do have around how it's designed and the results that you're getting as well, then have that conversation and ask and request to have a meeting. Don't build all that energy up, because it's only going to end up coming out in you when you're talking with your prospects and your new landlord opportunities. It's only going to actually make it a far more uncomfortable experience for yourself as well. So have that open conversation. I'm hoping those 3 examples that I've shared today will really open your eyes to what is available out there and certainly what can be achieved in the way of incentives. I'm probably thinking that there are quite a few online, and I will have that opportunity to go through any questions that are within our chat section, and that's worked out quite well to have Ellen as our second speaker, because I can keep an eye on that quite well as the presentation continues. But, you know, if you've got an incentive package that you're on at the moment that you're not happy with, or you'd like to review or adjust, bring it forward. I love hearing all the different ones that are out there, because it only helps me continue to come up with different ideas on how I can assist the industry as a whole. And as I mentioned, it's not an overly hot topic that's covered. So I think that it's been scary today sharing it, but I'm hoping it's also, you know, absolutely helped educate the industry as well. So Ellen, we'll just set you up now to take over there. And at this stage, I wasn't able to hear you before when you were talking, so I'm just going to change you to the presenter just to make sure. It looks like you've got all full reins, so I'll let you go full steam ahead.
All right, so can you hear me all right and see me, and can you see my screen at the moment? Yes? All right, here we go. Okay, so I'm excited about this part of the presentation because I love talking about working with referral partners and working out what we should spend in order to get a new client. And people ask me this all the time, and they go, you know, should I be willing to spend a week's rent or half a week's rent, or how much should I be willing to spend to obtain a new landlord client? And for me, I think the best thing to do before you decide how much you're going to spend is work out what that client is actually worth to you. So I'm really passionate about working out what the lifetime value of a client is, so that we can then figure out, well, what is this client worth for the entire time that we service them? And then we can work out what percentage of that we're willing to pay to get a new client. And I've just put in this slide here that from what I've seen, other businesses, and not just in the real estate industry, but businesses in other industries as well, tend to be willing to spend somewhere between 3 and 10% of the lifetime value of a client. So I'm actually going to show you now in some slides how you actually figure that out, so that you can see in real life what a property is actually worth to you. So I'm going to show you the manual calculation for this, but at the end of today's session, I'm actually going to send you a pre-programmed spreadsheet so that you can use this spreadsheet to actually automatically figure out how much a client is actually worth to you. So this is the way to calculate a lifetime value of a client. And I'm going to take you to the next slide and actually do the calculation with you with an example property so that you can figure out what a property is worth to you. And I'm going to use conservative numbers because I think it's always best to be conservative. So that's the formula. Let me show you it in real life though. So we're going to pretend that we've got a property that's worth $400 a week to us and we're charging 7% commission, and we're going to assume that we just charge 1 week's rent as a letting fee once a year. Now, I know that in most cases we do charge more than just a letting fee. We charge an admin fee and maybe an inspection fee and an end of financial year statement fee. But in this case, to make it really easy and conservative, we're just going to work with those two incomes throughout the year. So I like to work out, well, what do we get in weekly commission? So you can see that 400 by 7 is $28 weekly commission. $28 a week at 52 weeks means that we get $1,456 in annual commission. And if we get one annual letting fee of $400, it means that the total annual income we get on that property is $1,856. Now let's just pretend we're only going to keep this client for 5 years. And we all know that most people tend to hang on to property for 7 to 10 years, and investors often keep their investment properties for even longer. But I think it's good to be conservative. Let's say we'll keep them for 5 years. So over those 5 years, assuming we'd never have a rent increase and assuming we never put our commission up, we'll make $9,280 over those 5 years. Now, we probably will have rent increases. We probably will put our fees up, but let's be conservative. Then, at the end of 5 years, let's assume we're going to sell that property as part of a rent roll sale. So, to work out the value of that property within a rent roll sale, we take the annual income of $1,856, multiply it by a sales multiple, and I've just put 2.5 as my sales multiple, and we get a sale price value of $4,640, which means when we add the 5 years of management income plus the value of that property as part of a rent roll sale, this property that's only worth $28 a week in commission to us actually makes us nearly $14,000 over the lifetime of that client. So it just puts it into perspective around what that property is actually worth to us. And so if I just take you back here and we look at spending 3 to 10% of the lifetime value of a property, based on that calculation, if we're willing to spend 3% of the lifetime value of that client, that's about 1 week's rent. So that's just a worthwhile exercise to go through and figure out, well, what is this property actually worth, or what is our average property worth to us before we decide what we're willing to spend to secure that client. And keep in mind, as Tara has highlighted, if you're paying a BDM, 25% of the letting fee, then you might have decided you're willing to spend 1 week's rent to secure a client. So if you're spending 25% of that letting fee on the BDM, then that gives you 75% of that letting fee to spend elsewhere, either through marketing or perhaps through referral partnerships. So I always think that's worthwhile doing. I know that the calculation looks long-winded, but I'm actually going to send you a spreadsheet at the end of this that will allow you to just put in the weekly rent, your average commission, what letting fee you get per year, and how long you plan to keep that client, and that will spit out the lifetime value for you. So once you know what you're willing to spend to get a client, I love working with referral partners to secure management So my favourite referral partners are people who are in service-based industries who are complementary to our industry. So solicitors, conveyancers, mortgage brokers, financial planners, accountants, builders, other tradespeople, because all of these people have contact with property investors. So I like working with those sorts of people, and I always, when I had my business, I always paid for a referral. Now, I would give those referral partners the choice about how I paid them. Some of my referral partners, when I secured a management as a result of their referral, would send me an invoice for what I was willing to pay them, and I would make a bank transfer. Some of my referral partners preferred me to purchase them a Visa gift card because it meant that I could claim the expense of the Visa gift card, but it often meant that they didn't necessarily declare that as income. So that's probably a conversation that's worthwhile having with your referral partners so that you can be clear on how you're going to reward them, and make sure that you do reward them, because even if they say they're not motivated by the money, it's still good to acknowledge them, and if you said that you're going to pay them, you need to pay them for the referral. Now, keep in mind that my experience has been that most professional services aren't actually motivated by the money you're going to pay them. They're more motivated by the fact that they can refer their clients to someone who they can actually trust. So keep in mind that it will take a little bit of time to win these referral partners over. You might have to have a couple of coffees with them before they send you the first lead, but once they know they can trust you, they will be highly motivated by referring their clients to a trusted property management company than motivated by the amount of money you're going to send them. And the other thing to keep in mind with referral partners is it needs to be a two-way street. You need to give as well as receive. So if you've ever been exposed to the BNI networking system, they talk a lot about the importance of giving without the expectation of receiving. So if you're going to partner with referral partners like solicitors, conveyancers, mortgage brokers, accountants, you need to be looking for opportunities to refer to them as well. There seems to be this unwritten rule of reciprocity where if you give something to someone else, like if you give a lead to your mortgage broker, they feel this sense of needing to reciprocate and give you something in return. So it's really important that even though you're going to pay them for a referral, it's really important that you give them referrals as well, because it needs to be a two-way street. What I want to share with you now is a concept that seems to be emerging in other industries around what I refer to as splitting the spoils. So this is a concept around how you pay for referrals that is a little bit different. So if you decide that you're going to pay 1 week's rent to your mortgage broker, if they refer a client who becomes a client with you, then the old way of paying them would be to just send them 1 week's rent. However, this new concept is about sharing that referral between the mortgage broker who made the referral and the new client who you picked up. So ING Bank are actually doing this really well, and my husband and I have just recently become ING banking customers, and they're running a promotion at the moment where if I refer friends and family to them, they will pay me $75 and they will pay my friends or family $75 when that person opens a new bank account. Now, that, to me, this is the coolest thing ever, because if ING were only going to pay me $75 and they weren't going to give, my younger brother anything for opening an account, I don't think I would really encourage my brother to use my coupon code. But the fact that he's going to get a benefit out of this referral that is equal to the benefit that I'm going to get means that I am giving out my little coupon code to anyone who'll take it, because it means that I get $75 and they get $75. And in lots of cases, people can sometimes feel a little bit almost icky for benefiting from making an introduction to your services. So if you split that benefit between the mortgage broker who makes the introduction and the client who becomes a client, it means that both parties actually benefit. And there are quite a few industries who are doing this now, and it seems to be working even better than it works when you just pay the referral partner. So I would encourage you to give this a try and see if you actually end up with more referrals by doing it this way. So Tara, I hand back to you, because this is probably a great time to allow for some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got the question section open here. You can hear me nice and clear, Ellen. I just had to turn my volume down in case I was ringing or any other general noise was getting in the way. The first question is, have we recorded this? We absolutely have recorded this. I can confirm that. And I'd probably suggest too, I know that after the presentation we have an email that you kindly organised, which is wonderful, Ellen, that you'll send out. We can probably include a download to the slides as well as the recording. So we can have a bit of both there for those that are wanting to just look at the slides or just look at the recording. That'll be absolutely fine. I've got the question section open for certainly any of there. I loved the point that you mentioned about the sharing the referral fee. So you're rewarding still someone for joining the company as well as the person who has referred it. And what is interesting about that is it is obviously still the amount of $75, and in most cases you might actually give $150 to the person referring. So why not say, well, we actually split it, and then you don't have to feel as though you're referring and then getting something that you're feeling, I guess, uncomfortable about taking when you're making that recommendation.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and it works really well.
Much, much easier. Now, Christmas ideas. We're very close to Christmas, though, but things that we would suggest in the way of clients and just in general is kind of the question there. So I guess from myself, probably given that it's so close, you want to get your act, I'd say, this week and get stuff out in the mail if you're going to do post. And sometimes, the post can take a little bit of time. I know from Queensland it can take a couple of weeks sometimes to get to Perth. So I'd probably suggest doing it fairly quickly if you're going to do that. A personalised Christmas card's always definitely a winner. We used to add scratchies and sometimes candy canes and different things. If you've got bigger clients, then, and they're nearby, offer to take them out for morning tea or a coffee or something that might just really have a positive impact on their day as well. Anything else that I guess you want to add to that, Ellen?
Yeah, I did Christmas cards. So I did handwritten Christmas cards to all landlords and all tenants. I did not personally write all of them. I actually had a girl who was 14 years old who used to come into the office once a week, and she did a lot of the scanning in the office. So she was super helpful with getting all our Christmas cards written. And yeah, for landlords, we just put a $1 or a $2 scratchy into every single card for all of our landlords as well.
Now, one of the questions here is, obviously you mentioned the example with the banks as to what they're doing with the split. Is there an example that you could suggest that you would think would be a good idea for a property management business to offer?
Yeah, so if I would first of all work out what you're willing to spend to get a client. Now, for me in my business, I was willing to spend 1 week's rent to get a client, and that meant that I was willing to pay a referral partner 1 week's rent. I was willing to spend up to the average of 1 week's rent on Google marketing. I would now, Facebook is a little bit more affordable now, so I would be willing to spend up to a week's rent to get a client that way. So I think the first thing is figure out what you're willing to spend, and then I would split it. So if you're willing to spend $400 to get a new client, give a $200 Visa gift card to the mortgage broker who referred it, and then give $200 Visa gift card to that new client. Maybe when you first sign the first lease and you do up all the paperwork and all of that, and maybe you want to give them some sort of a gift, spend the $200 on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just
Yeah.
having a read through some of the questions here, and one said, do not get Christmas cards with glitter because you'll never get rid of it
Yes.
in your office. There's an interesting one here, and I certainly won't mention the name of the person, but there's a business owner that's having a problem with one of their property managers, and they're having difficulty in having that conversation with them with some concerns. So it's obviously not too much detail there, but it probably leads me to believe that the way that they are performance-wise, and maybe also the way they are communicating to the general public and their client base as well. I think at the end of the day, as a business owner, what you've got to remember is it is your actual business at the end of the day. So if you're not satisfied with a performance, you are able to have that tough conversation. And I'm probably thinking that your biggest fear is if that property manager goes, what will I do? It sounds as though they're quite damaging to the business at the moment. So if they stay, imagine what will happen is probably my feedback there. So I'd be really proactive in trying to find that next person if you're wanting to give yourself a bit of a buffer period and start to have slow conversations. You know, don't dump on if there's, say, 10 things that this property manager isn't doing very well, and I know I'm probably being a bit extreme here, maybe talk about one or two of them and have a bit more of a slower process into that situation. I'm a member of Toastmasters, and they talk about the compliment sandwich. So you provide some good feedback, and then you give some area of constructive feedback, and then you close with a compliment, and then it's a nice sandwich. So that might be another way of approaching it. I'm not sure, you know, you might be past that now, that there might need to be some more harsh conversations there, but I would definitely suggest at the end of the day, it is your business, you're full control. Don't let it stay this way. Be proactive in having a solution moving forward that's going to work for you. Is there anything extra that you'd add to that, Ellen?
Yeah, for me, the first thing that comes to mind for me is, were they performing well at one stage, and are they not performing well now? And if they've never performed well, then, as you said, Tara, it's your business and you can't have them damaging your business. However, if there has been a noticeable change, I would be asking what's going on, because if there's something going on outside of work, and they're usually a great performer, that if they were performing well again, you'd like to keep them, maybe having an open conversation around would allow you to make some accommodations and have them not client-facing for a while they're dealing with whatever's going on, so that they can come back. But I think it depends on, is this just a downward trend, or has it just started happening recently and there's something else going on?
It's not happening. Because if it's been ongoing, then they're probably clearly not enjoying the role. But if it's something that's recent, it could be something in their personal life too that has changed quite significantly that they may not be aware of. Another really good question here, actually, Ellen, and I'll let you start with it first, is the actual time frame of longevity of a client, so what the average would be. You know, sometimes we can have clients up to 12 months, and then businesses I've even gone into in the last couple of months, some of them have been clients for 25, 30 years, you know, so what a rough average is.
Yeah, so if you're an established agency and you've been trading for years, then you can work it out. Actually do the averages based on your portfolio and have a look at all the properties you've ever managed, including the ones that you've lost, and work out what is the average lifespan in our office. So if you're already established, that's what I would be doing. So that, because each office is going to be different and each area is going to be different, and if you can work out your averages, that's ideal. However, if you're a new if you're a new agency, then the reason I picked 5 years is because it fluctuates so much. Some clients you'll just have for 12 months because the landlord's just going overseas for 12 months and they're coming back into their property, and other clients keep their investment properties for 20 years. So that's why I just chose 5 years as a conservative number, and I'd
probably suggest that's pretty realistic.
Yeah, I would work with that if you don't have actual averages to work on in your own business.
And I think also too, Ellen, I could be way off, but I'd probably suggest that a regional property management business would find they probably do have longer term clients than a city-based business. Could be wrong.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes when you're in a city and you've got so much going up and down and there's opportunity to sell and make good money, happens quite
Yes.
quickly.
Yep.
I know, being active in a regional office myself and now still living in that area, we've not had, you know, too higher sales increases. So it's not as attractive to sell as quickly. And
Mm.
that can sometimes be of a benefit. I guess you could, I know that certainly the portfolio that I was working in did have some clients that had been there for 20 something
Yeah.
years, so they can certainly stay on for quite a long time, and then passing it on to family and different things as well.
Exactly.
One of
Yeah.
our attendees today actually shared that they're giving $200 to the Ronald McDonald House. I hope I've quoted that right, the charity through McDonald's there, and for
Yeah.
every new listing that comes on for the month of December. I just think that's amazing. It's
Ah,
actually giving me goosebumps. So
that's lovely. Me
congratulations
too.
on
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah, you know, even if anything that you can give back around this time of year is really really powerful. I know
Yeah.
the Real Mark Group, and they're over in WA. There's quite a few offices over there. Nita Perkadani's franchise. They do a massive charity where they send gifts overseas and they collect a lot of donations and different things. And it's just such a nice time of year to be able to give back. And a lot of people want to give gifts sometimes as well, but they aren't really sure where to go or, you know, how to donate them. So it's definitely a good reward to certainly get involved with.
Yeah.
The next question I've got here is, what would you do to reward your loyal clients as well? So ones that have been, you know, ongoing and loyal. Any that were within our area on the Fraser Coast, as I mentioned, we would personally take them out for coffee. There were some that we had dinner meetings with, and some of the investors actually knew each other quite well, which I guess was an
Mm.
advantage being in a regional area as well. So we would put on that kind of stuff for them. We did run a focus group, which was really powerful. So that invited everyone together that was within the area to talk about how they felt we were communicating with them on a business level, but to talk all things investment, and we gave them a bottle of wine and a nice book and everything to thank them for that. So that was an opportunity for them to chat as well. So I think gain some feedback from your clients as to how they like to be rewarded
Yeah.
too. And if you've got the chance to do that, or to send a nice boxed gift to them. Look, we've got an amazing lady who's speaking at our event in Brisbane next year, Emily, and she has this Gold Coast gift baskets company, and the boxes that they do up with beautiful bottles of wine, and it's just amazing, amazing some of the stuff that she has, and she's covering a customer service session, and a lot of her box gifts are under $100, you know, and if you've got a client that has 10 properties, something up to $100 is something that's going to still surprise them and make them feel amazing, but it's a small token of your appreciation as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ellen?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in asking people about how they like to be rewarded, and this applies to staff, it applies to relationships, it applies to clients. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of. There's a book called The Five Love Languages, which talks about
Yeah.
the different ways that people like to be acknowledged, and I think if
Mm.
you're able to figure out how your landlord clients individually like to be acknowledged, for some of them,
Mm.
it will be gifts. And I personally am a gift person. I like giving gifts. I like getting
Mm.
gifts. But not all of them are going to be that way. Quality time might be a really
Mm.
big thing for them. So if you're going to go to the effort of doing something for your long-term clients, take the extra effort to try and figure out what it is that's going to mean something to them. Because
Mm.
if you're going to spend
Yeah, 'cause
$100, spend it in a way that means something to them.
yeah, and they'll enjoy it and appreciate it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Now we've got here. Oh gosh, the questions are flying, flying, flying in now. Um, the hiring a BDM for the first time and best incentive structure. I'd probably suggest someone, if you're doing it for the first time and they're reasonably new at the role as well, as I mentioned, keep them on the lowest base possible because they do have to be driven to want to perform, but maybe look at that option where you're not giving 100% away at the first part, you're giving 25% away for the first 5, or you can obviously do zero incentive up to the first 5 as well, but I find just giving a little bit just keeps that momentum going and they can see the results. However, if they, over that first 6 months, continue to stay around that lower end, then you've really got to find a way to refocus that energy, because they're not getting excited by that opportunity that's there. They should be wanting to get up to the 20 mark and getting the full 100% of the let fee for their properties. So I think that gives them a little bit of a teaser, and they can get some money in their back pocket and get them excited about it as well. But we've got some thank yous here, which is really good. Probably just to add to that, and there are a few more questions I can see here around the referral side as well, the incentive side I should say, is make sure it's in line with the projection of what you're hoping to achieve income-wise on your business as well. Don't go all out and go, I'm going to give $500 per lead and be super generous and get the best BDM, and then I'll give $250 for what they sign up through the business and $500 what they sign themselves, and then come to the end of the year and go, oh gosh, I've been lucky to make $20,000 or $30,000 in my own back pocket because I'm giving out all this money all the time. So you've got to look at what your expenses are as well, and look at a marketing budget and what that's going to cost you, and involve your BDM with that. Involve them as part of that marketing budget. Are they choosing to invest in that marketing budget as well, so they can gain full incentive? Another part which we didn't really touch on is when you get a BDM that is awesome and doing a fantastic job, there becomes a fear of what are they going to decide to do next? Will they stay with my business, or will they go? Will I lose them to sales, or will they go and start their own? And I think that's a really important question to have during the review process. So prior to starting the academy and obviously working with Jade as a BDM there at Prestige Properties, 6 months before she decided to sell, we actually did have that conversation of me becoming a partner in the business for the Hervey Bay portfolio also, because that's where I'm based now and I absolutely love living here. And then her circumstances changed, and she was very honest about that, and she obviously decided, I just want to sell the whole asset and go into a different direction in my life. And I wasn't in a position, maturity-wise and or financially, that time to take on the whole asset. So I knew that a lot of what I had gained, I'd be able to take into potentially the next office I went into. And throughout that time, what was quite interesting was she kept having those conversations with me, because she knew that competitors would keep asking me if I'd be interested in having a meeting with them and looking at working for their business. And I just genuinely absolutely loved working for Prestige Properties. In fact, as I mentioned, I'd still be there today if she didn't decide to sell, because I would have got involved in it myself. And I may have stepped into sales. It's always been a passion of mine. But these are the kind of things that you need to get out of your BDM's head, because what you don't want them doing is thinking, I'll just go off and start my own property management business and I'll be amazing and I'll make all this money. Because if you do think along those lines, and I'm not squashing the idea, but I am saying this, you've gone from being an amazing BDM that signs, whether it be 10, 15, 20, 30 plus managements a month, and then you're signing new business, but then you're managing that business. So you've gone back into that original role of doing both. And a lot of people that jump out and think this is just going to be amazing forget about that, and that they are going to have to actually manage that asset to actually make the really good money. And I would think, it's not to probably get over that 100 properties, would you agree, Ellen, that you don't start to see some serious quality of income for your efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. People that I work with all the time look at BDMs in exclusive BDM roles who are bringing in 10, 20, 30 properties a month, and then they look at their own business and go, why am I not achieving that? And the reason is they're beating everything. They're only a part-time BDM. So I work with rent roll startups where there's only one person in the business doing absolutely everything, and they bring on somewhere between 3 and 8 properties a month, which is quite different to if they were a full-time BDM, because they've got to manage the properties as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got to absolutely have that, I guess, passion to do both. And that's probably part of the reason why I am grateful that it went the direction that it did for me, because I wasn't as excited about property management to actually be an active property manager as what I was about being an active BDM. So it's interesting how the one door closes and the next door certainly opens there. Now, there was a question on here about trainers in WA. Well, we have clients in WA, you and I, Ellen, so hello, we can do this. if you'd like us to assist you with your BDM, please connect with us, and we would absolutely love to help you. I'm actually, and I haven't mentioned it obviously as part of the webinar, but I think we're adding it, Ellen, in the email after the presentation today, that we've got our national tour next year. real estate training group will be in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth and Wellington. Casey and I have an amazing lineup of speakers. All locations have up to 14 presentations with 4 breakouts. We tend to not sleep for that 3 months from January as we get in. Sleep's overrated into that part of the year. It's very exciting. All locations that can offer CPD are CPD approved, which we're really excited about. So yes, those of you who are in WA, you will get your full 7 CPD. And I know a few have dropped offline because we have gone over our time frame, so I completely respect that. But those that are still online, and you'll certainly get the email as well, as a follower today, as part of our webinar, we're offering buy one, get the second one half price. So you'd pay the full rate of the $365, and then the second ticket would be half that price. So it's still slightly above what our early bird rate was, because we completely respect those that have gone in for that investment during the month of November, and still a fantastic and amazing discount. So if you're needing someone next year, I'm certainly personally going to be over there spending some time, but otherwise Ellen and I are always happy to talk all things BDM, no matter where you are in Australia. You're doing New Zealand as well, Ellen?
Yes, I am. Yes.
And New Zealand. So Australia and New Zealand, we love both. We love both. I've only just touched on the US now, so it's still fairly early stages. Lots and lots of thank yous I'm seeing in here, and I'm very concerned because there are quite a few questions, Ellen, that we may have missed, some may not. So if I have missed your question, please do send it through to either both of us or us personally after the presentation. I'm blown away by the amount of questions that are in here, actually, Ellen. Obviously, we've got some great content that we've been able to share that with everybody today, and the thank yous are flooding in, so we're exceptionally grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I hope that everyone that is still online certainly has a wonderful Christmas, and to yourself, Ellen, as well.
You too,
and
yes.
I think that our tour ends in March, so I'd probably suspect that we look at April for our next webinar together. Ellen and I have done an amazing job catching up by video, and it's our goal in 2018 to make sure that we see each other in person. In fact, I'll be sure to make sure we have a photo of us together, that we are in the same place at the same time. Merry Christmas. Yes, lots of Merry Christmases. Thank you so much, guys. And please, if I have missed your question, it's not been a deliberate thing. It's just there are actually quite a few there, and would absolutely love if you can send that through to us. You'll see all that on the email after this session as well. And we've got some great free downloads there and resources for use in 2018.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Love. Thank you very much.
All right.
And I'll talk to you